Good afternoon and welcome to Generations United's webinar on youth leadership, driving positive community change that supports all generations and all cultures. I'd like to just introduce myself. I'm Sherry Steinig. I am the Special Projects Director with Generations United, and Leah Bradley, who also works here with Generations United, is the other moderator online today. Generations United works to improve the lives of children, youth, and older people through intergenerational practice and public policies. We share resources and connect practitioners around the United States and the world. One of the ways that we do this is through our website, www.gu.org, e-newsletters, and these webinars. This is the fifth in our series of monthly webinars on intergenerational issues made possible with a grant from MetLife Foundation. We will be hosting one more webinar as part of this series next month. And then we do hope to have additional webinars throughout the remainder of the years and then an additional series starting up again in the fall. So please watch the calendar on our website or our e-newsletter for more information about any additional upcoming webinars. You're soon going to see a quick poll from our presenters. If you could just take a second or two to respond while I go over a couple of quick housekeeping items. First, just so you know, we have experienced some challenges with this system during the past couple of webinars. Mainly, there's been a delay between when we click the slides and when you will see the next slide available. There may be this delay, and it may happen. The slide will eventually show up, and our presenters will keep on going, and the slides will catch up to them. We will have the PowerPoint presentation as well as a recording of this webinar available on our website, and when you'll receive an email from GoToMeeting in a couple of days that will have a link to where that'll be, and it'll be up. Since today's Thursday, it may be up tomorrow, but most likely it'll be up on Monday. Second, just for some text, if you're having any trouble hearing, there is an option to either listen through your speakers on your computer or to dial in from the telephone. And people have had different experiences using both of those. So if one's not working very well for you, you may want to try the other. There will be time for question and answers. Our presenters are happy to answer any questions or respond to comments anytime during the webinar. You can use the question or chat function to ask those at any time. Leah and I will moderate those and make sure that we ask them of our presenters. And finally, at the end of the webinar, there will be a short survey. So please take a couple of minutes to complete that when you log off. We really rely on your feedback and comments to help us plan future webinars. Now, I want to briefly introduce our presenters today and then turn it over to them, and they'll share more about their stories, experiences, and the incredible passion they have for this work. Kristen Bodiford is a principal at Community Strengths. She brings extensive strategic planning and communications experience to support groups, organizations, and systems, creating positive change in communities. Community Strengths supports efforts that engage the strengths of their communities, work towards meeting everyone's needs, and promote resilience and positive human development throughout the lifespan. Vernon Williams III is currently an accomplished public speaker and is a stand for equity, empowerment, restoration, and social justice on this planet. Vernon is the founder, chief executive officer of the Williams Group and Associates. The Williams Group is a stand for unleashing the innate greatness, dignity, and principled courage in every citizen in service of a just and equitable society that unlocks opportunities for all. Through a constellation of learning and action projects, they are empowering individuals, communities, and organizations to take a stand for their highest potential and to act for impact. Jordan Seifel currently works with the Williams Group staff, although he would say that this work is not just a job but a passion. His purpose in life is to manifest wholeness and good character first in his life and then others, and to create a network of architects and practitioners that will bring about sustainable change all around the world. Prior to joining the Williams Group, Jordan himself faced many challenges that eventually found him in trouble with the law and landed in the criminal justice system. He is currently pursuing his Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice with a concentration in Human Services to further his knowledge on the criminal justice system. He'll be graduating in 2013 and will continue to do what he loves afterwards, empowering youth to discover their greatness. So we're so pleased that Kristen, Vernon, and Jordan are here today to share their experiences and their expertise with us. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you so much. Did Vernon and Jordan, did you want to say something before we got started into our presentation?
Sure. I just want to greet everyone. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on the call. I am so anxious and anticipating learning from one another, which is how we truly grow. I just want to share a few more insights about who I am. One of those, and most importantly, is my largest commitment. My largest commitment in this work is to directly influence 10 million young people through two systems, and that's the criminal justice system and education. And my commitment is to get them to first discover and then live from their innate greatness. So we manifest that commitment through our projects, which range from transformational leadership to hospital-based violence intervention to prison reentry initiatives on a local and state level. And what these projects result in are a shift from blind compliance by reducing truancy, by reducing on-campus conflict, disciplinary actions, and increasing student engagement, student attendance, and youth development within the population that we serve. And this creates a culture of powerful leadership for self, is where we began to see true sustainable transformation. So it's a pleasure to be on the call. I look forward to sharing knowledge and information and learning just as much as I speak with you all, and I'm looking forward to the next hour of engagement. So good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jordan Sizlove. I'm excited to be on the call. This is my first webinar, and like I said, I'm just excited to be here. I want to get right into it. Just a little bit about my background. I faced many challenges, and there was no hope for me, or at least that's what I thought, because my voice was never able to be heard. So I think one of the main purposes of this presentation is to know that there is hope and that your voice needs to be heard. And when I realized that, my life began to change. I got involved with the Williams Group. I graduated on time when I was lacking 120 credits my senior year. So when you commit to something and when you change the way you speak and think, your life will change for the better. So again, I'm glad to be here. Good morning to all, and I look forward to learning with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vernon and Jordan. And I am Kristen Bodiford, and I'm going to go ahead and kick us off with this webinar with a little bit of background about the project that we're involved with, and provide a little framework for how we're going to be talking about our work. So to start off, I want to tell you that this is really a systems and community-wide effort. The previous slide, you probably saw many different logos that were on the slide, and we really want to represent that this is a partnership between many different entities that have come together to support youth and all generations within our community, including Families Thrive, which is a federal demonstration project in Contra Costa County focusing on childhood exposure to domestic violence, which we realize is an intergenerational issue. The Antioch Unified School District, Center for Digital Storytelling, the Youth Intervention Network, the Williams Group, the Antioch Police Activities League is just a few of the community partners that have come together to address some of the issues that the community was experiencing and engage and support youth as active leaders in their community. So with that, I wanted to tell you, start with our story, that this is one story that we can share with you of a community in Antioch, California, and their commitment to create social change by engaging the strengths of youth and developing intergenerational partnerships. It really began before May of last year, but the story that we will tell you began in May of last year with a project called Chopping It Up, where youth came together to learn dialogic models and strengthen their skills to tell their stories and flip current narratives around how youth are currently being seen in their community. That was followed by an intensive peer mediation training called Dialogue for Peaceful Change, where the youth went through a training that adults had been going through in the community. There was the first group of youth to go through this extensive training in the world, joining many other people who have been trained in the Dialogue for Peaceful Change peer mediation process. And now they're going through an extensive training that's being led by Vernon and the Williams Group and Jordan and his team called Emerging Leaders. And through this, the youth are becoming very involved in issues that impact them and other generations in their community, beginning with looking at teen dating violence and engaging in dialogue with older adults in their communities about issues that they share concerns and hopes for in the future. So a little bit, and the next slide is about a little orientation to the framework of how we see this work. And this is really simplifying it, as many of you do work in your own communities. Know that there's much more than this, but we wanted to just lay down a little bit of a framework. And so what we want to present is that we really believe it starts with the language that we use and the stories that we tell and the images that we create that together begin to weave a dominant narrative or a single story really about anyone in a community. And in our case, we were looking at how youth are defined and labeled, but it could be older adults or seniors or elders, however we view groups of people within our community. It could be groups of other people, maybe immigrants in our community. So understanding that the language we use creates has a huge impact on the narratives and stories that we build about groups of people and how they're defined and labeled, leading sometimes to missing seeing the complexity and the context of people's lives, the unique paths that they take to navigate their lives, and also the strengths, hopes, and dreams that they hold for themselves, their families, and their community. Within this dominant narrative, it really creates a relational response. So however people are seen creates responses in our relationships to each other that leads to certain actions and choices. We see this very clearly in educational systems, juvenile justice systems, how we deal with aging. And so being able to deconstruct these dominant narratives really leads to understanding how we might be able to create different relational responses, different actions and choices. And so really understanding how this impacts our relationships with each other creates a certain reality in our communities. So there's many points along this framework where we will talk about how we can flip the script and pose different alternatives. And with that, I'd like to turn over to Jordan, who will go into a little bit more about this dominant narrative and single story.
So as Kristen said, next slide, please. Okay, so as Kristen said, the language that we use, it has an impact on our life. Stories matter. There's 4 points I'm going to cover. We're going to talk about what stories are told, who tells them, how often they are told, and who gets a say. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are familiar with the things I'm about to talk about. Some of the stories that are told in our communities about youth is that we're troublemakers. And because of that story that adults tell, that our parents tell about us, we believe that, oh, if I'm a troublemaker, I'm going to do what a troublemaker does. I'm going to get in trouble. We believe what we hear. Another thing that we hear, one of the stories that is told, is that we're a thug, we're disrespectful, we're lazy, we're a failure. Those are all some of the things that we hear. And the things that we hear, it creates a story in our mind. And that story, if we believe in that, it can disempower us. So who tells the stories? There's a number of different people that tell the stories. It can be your parents, your aunties, uncles. It can be elders in the community. It can be teachers on your school campus. They all have a different story about you. And the story is based on interpretation, not fact. So, for instance, one of the elders in our community might see me back in the day standing on the corner with my pants sagging, my hat turned to the back, and they'll instantly label me as a thug because of my appearance. What they don't know is what's going on in my life. They don't know what's really going on. All they're doing is making an interpretation by what they see. So that's one of the things that we have to deal with on an everyday basis. I see it all around us. It goes on. You know, when I was still in school, I seen it every single day. Some of the other people that tell these stories is the media. The media says that it's okay to cheat on your significant other. The media says that it's okay to be a player, to be promiscuous. The media says it's okay to do drugs, to drink alcohol. That's what the media portrays to the youth. That's what we see on TV every day and the movies that we see. So our youth believe that it's okay to drink. It's okay to smoke. It's okay to have more than one girl. It's okay to have more than one dude. That's because the things that we see and the things that we say, and it ultimately falls back to what you believe in. And we believe these things because we see them all around us. So how often are these stories told? Well, we hear it in our music. We see it on the TV. It goes on in our school campuses. It goes on at home. So I would say these stories are told every single day. And what that does is it impacts our life. It can impact our life in a negative way, and it can impact our life in a positive way. It's up to us on how we let it impact our life. Now, who gets to say? Normally, the youth doesn't get to say anything. Their voice isn't heard because the youth doesn't know anything. The parents know it all. The adults know it all, but we don't know anything. So what that creates in our mind is this. I'm going to isolate myself from the adults. I'm not going to have anything to do with them, and that's where disengagement happens. And it creates more problems. And then we stay away from the adults, and when we have problems, we can't go to them because we feel they're just going to shoot us down. So as a young man, and still as a youth, when I didn't have a say-so, when my voice wasn't able to be heard, I wasn't empowered. And the reason I wasn't empowered is because I felt like everything that I had to say, it was just useless. It had no value to anyone. And I think that's what's going on with a lot of our youth today. They feel that what they have to say has no value. It doesn't mean anything to their parents. It doesn't mean anything to their teachers. So when we feel like that, that's when it's disempowering, because then we start to believe that more and more, that what we have to say is invaluable. And that's when we shut our voice down. And I'm here to tell you, though, in order for us to live an empowered life, our voices have to be heard. If you can change to the next slide, Leah. So this leads into beliefs and power. What you choose to believe in your life can either empower you or disempower you. So if I choose to believe in the dominant stories that adults, your teachers, your parents, elders in the community are saying about you, he's a thug, he's a drug dealer, he's a hustler, he's going to fail in school, he's not going to get anywhere. If you believe in that, that's the kind of life you're going to live. You're going to live a disempowered life. You're not going to have anything. You're going to struggle every single day, and you're going to have to deal with the pain and the suffering that comes with that. I know, because I lived that life. I believed what they said about me, and I was disempowered. So if you change your belief, the way you think and the way you speak, because language, it creates a story. My name is Jordan Sizelove. I am justice, equality, restoration, empowerment, and peace in this planet. That's who I am in this planet. Nobody can tell me anything other than that. I know who I am now, and I won't believe what other people have to say about me, because I've discovered who I am, and I live from that every single day. When you discover who you are, not what other people tell you, or not what the media says about you, or not what the music you listen to says, for yourself, when you discover for yourself who you are, what you care about in life, and you live from that, because change starts with yourself. You have to see yourself differently. So if you learn to believe in yourself and believe that there is hope and that you can turn your life around, you can live an empowering life by changing the way you speak, by changing the way you think. And when you do those two things, your actions will start to change, and that's how your life begins to get redesigned into something that's empowering, into something that's more fulfilling. You get the satisfaction of knowing my life used to be like this, but look at it now. I'm not who they say I am. I did what they say I did, but I'm not who they say I am. And that's living a life empowered. And our voices need to be heard. So we need to speak out. We need to change the way we speak. And we need to change the things that we believe in. So Kristen, she's going to go in a little bit more on the traditional view of youth engagement that we see in our communities. And she'll elaborate a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Jordan. I always hate following you because you just are so impactful and powerful, and it takes me a while to get my my sense back. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to just say one more thing before we move on to the next slide. As an adult who's working with youth and communities, from a standpoint of the lens that we need to bring as adults, and critically looking at the position of power that we bring to this work. One of the things, these images that you'll see here, we had a teen dating violence policy briefing. And it really takes a shift in thinking how we're going to engage and co-construct with youth and privilege youth voice. And, you know, even doing this work, as much as we do, it takes an intentionality of making sure that youth voice is just as much, if not more, privileged in the work that we do. You'll see here Sydney is speaking with our state senator, Sir Mark DeSagne, and Rodney is speaking with our new chief of police in Concord, California. Yeah, Guy Swanger, thank you. And it was an intention to make sure that youth had just as much power and say around the issues that impact them and their communities. And so I just wanted to make sure that I relate that as well. And with the next slide, I always find it very interesting to do a Google search around different key terms and see what images come up and the type of images that we are putting out there about groups of people. I love doing this around positive aging, looking at who's left out of the positive aging discourse. Normally you'll see within that, you'll see a lot of middle class, white, couples in bathing suits as positive aging. Here's a traditional view of youth engagement. And so when you do a Google search for youth engagement, this is a traditional view of something that came out from the National League of Cities. And we're going to talk about a little different view of youth engagement today. So take a look at this image, and then we'll go to the next image. We're going to talk about engaging and supporting young people in our communities who might be typically labeled as at risk or troubled. So Jordan talked a little bit about some of the stories that he has heard and that he hears in his community about youth. And these are some of the images. And these are the people that I'm talking about engaging as leaders in our community to lead positive change. And the importance of us flipping the images and the language that we use to categorize and label these youth and opening up possibilities. I think that we have text chat open, and so I just wanted to pose out to folks. I'd love to have you, type in your name, where you're from, and maybe some labels that you've heard. And again, labels are not always negative. There's positive labels as well. Sometimes these positive labels leave out specific groups of people. But what are the labels that you have heard within your work or your communities that might be less useful, that might leave certain people out, or might label people as not being active contributors of social change in their communities? And with that, while you're doing that, I'm going to turn over to Vernon to talk about how we flip the script and weaving new narratives together.
Well, thank you, Kristen. You don't make it any easier for me than Jordan made it for you. So I will try my best to follow up. So understanding, thank you, Jordan, for the youth voice. It's something powerful when you hear a young person give their experience from their lens and value that. There's so much that we can learn from that. So then the question becomes, how do we flip the script? How do we engage with youth in a way that they are empowered and approach our work from a different lens, as opposed to us typically as the adults having more experience, having more years lived on this planet, thinking that we know what's best for the young person? How do we flip that lens? How do we flip that script? And so if you can go to the next slide, Leah, that would be great. As opposed to looking at youth development and youth leadership as the youth being the problem, in our work we found that through a systematic framework, we identified that youth are the leaders. I'll say more about that. Despite the many challenges that youth might face in their lives, many not only survive, but they also thrive and flourish. How do they do that? They do that by not subscribing or participating in a dominant narrative as the youth being the problem to be solved. When we speak from that dominant narrative, what we have found is that we miss seeing the true context of youth lives and hearing the multitude of their strengths, of their dreams, and their hopes for a more positive future. They are the future leaders of today. So today we're developing those leaders of tomorrow. And we miss the tremendous opportunity for youth to actively contribute in positive ways in their community if we listen to the dominant narrative, which we've heard from Jordan, a young person who you can't get any realer than hearing from the youth's voice. Dropout, thug, those kids, gangster, nobody. You remind me of your father. You look like your mother. Those dominant narratives that they hear, how can we flip that script? Leah, next slide, please. Cool. In our work, this is what we found to be very effective around flipping the script. And it's simply connecting from a deeper understanding of each other. It goes beyond what we call, and we're all guilty of, including myself, engaging with a person from a social profile, their culture, their religious belief, the color of their skin, their socioeconomic status, the way that they dress, the way that they present themselves, how they look. Us as human beings naturally have been ingrained to gauge and judge people that we see or people that we deal with based upon what they look like, a social profile or a professional profile, a lawyer, a dropout student, a doctor, and so on. We base relationships in individuals based on these profiles, a psychological profile, and I mentioned the social profile earlier. What we found is that going deeper, engaging on a deeper level, connecting from a deeper understanding of each other by simply asking ourselves and identifying what we deeply care about. When we identify what we deeply care about, and I'll give you an example, I am Vernon Williams. My name is Vernon Williams. I am empowerment, restoration, social justice, sacrifice in the planet. This is who I am. Jordan spoke his stand earlier. Kristen speaks her stand. When we engage with one another from that place, we have found that we are connecting on a deeper level, connecting purpose to purpose, which transfers into social action from a place of being, so to speak. We found that this is where we see true sustainable transformation in our communities. This is when we see true intergenerational work manifest itself, because an elderly person is not engaging with a young person from a place of a social profile. African-American male, dropout student, has a black hoodie on with his pants sagging with long hair. Oh, he must be a thug. That's a social perspective. That's a social profile lens that many of us have engaged from. But when we go deeper and connect on a being level through purpose, we're not looking at one another as a thug or an old person who's got gray hair, who don't know nothing, who's on their way out. No, we're engaging from a place of compassion, a place of empowerment, a place of restoration. We're engaging with one another from that lens, and that supersedes age, supersedes culture, and we connect on that deeper level. So by connecting on that level, as I had said earlier, we're connecting through purpose. That transfers into social action. We realize that we are truly interdependent upon one another. The young people that we engage with, the Jordans, the Karinas, 5 or 6 piercings, all different places over her face, when we engage with them from a place of her being creativity and voice, we truly begin to see the power that these young people possess. It's innate within all of us. What we have found is due to all of these social constructs, formations, the media, the radio, and all those other variables, messaging variables that Jordan mentioned earlier, when we engage from a deeper place, we appreciate who they are as a unique being and not what the media portrays them to be, which is the dominant story. Then we begin to understand that we are dependent upon one another. So changing our lens, changing our perspective and our approach of engagement through youth, this is where we see the manifestation of true youth development leadership. We took a poll earlier, and of the 38 attendees on the call now, 88% of those 38 attendees are involved in community development. 57 are involved in youth empowerment. Some are involved in youth violence and gang reduction, and a greater percentage, 43%, are engaged with intergenerational work. How do we create a synergy where which age, race, culture, religious beliefs are not the determining factors by engaging on that from that deeper understanding of each other? That's where true transformation, what we have found to work, that is where true sustainable transformation, healthy, productive, high-performing communities that are cross-generational, cross-age and culture, that's where it begins to truly manifest, is what we have found. So changing our lens is humongous. Changing our perspective and having the courage to change the lens. Let's go to the next slide. Can we go to the next slide, Leah? Here we are. When we, we're still getting there. Thanks, Leah. So when we engage from a deeper understanding of each other, we listen differently. We observe differently. We engage differently. Our vision, what we see, changes. We begin to see the hope. We begin to see the strength of the young person, the value that they bring, not the messaging that they hear. A powerful place to start in this transformation is to look at the way we think and the language we use to shift from individual orientation, silos, cultural subcultures, pockets, religious beliefs, back and forth to a relational context, more interdependence. When we do this, our transformation becomes central in the equation. When we can shift our language and our orientation in ways we are in relationship with you, we have begun the path of transforming the relational space and the context that impacts youth in their daily lives. When we realize that we're interdependent, when we engage in a deeper space, what does the community look like then? When we are engaging from a place of identifying the compassion and the unique being in everyone else, identifying empowerment, voice, creativity, what does the community look like then? What foundation are we developing our community around then? What do our schools look like? When we're looking at a young person from a lens of who they are and not what a piece of paper says that they have done. What does our classroom feel like? What does our justice system look like? Is it punitive-based or is it restorative and rehabilitative-based? In the state of California, our recidivism rate is 72%. statewide. Our high school graduation rate is right around 67%. A system is going to accomplish what it was built to accomplish. But when we engage from a deeper space, a deeper level of understanding, what does the justice system look like now? One point that I did not share intentionally in my introduction is that I am also a convicted felon. According to the state of California's justice system, I'm a 3-striker. If I would have continued to be dealt with by the mistakes that I made in my youth, I would not be where I am today. But it was someone who saw the innate greatness within me and took the time, the commitment, and the compassion to develop that until it manifested and was able to stand on my own that I experienced true transformation. So this model, this framework that we engage from, it's not theoretical or in abstraction. It is literal. It's in action. It brings true transformation, realizing that we're interdependent. Or we can shift how our communities look. We can shift how we develop communities from a deeper space. Kristen, do you want to step in on building community capacity? Would you like for me to continue in there? Would you like to lay some groundwork and then I continue there?
Sure, either way. Can we go to the next slide, Leah? What I'd like to, I guess, Vernon, maybe you can go through this a little bit more, but projects in Contra Costa County, California. And one of the really beautiful things in working with Antioch, California is the commitment the community has made to becoming a high-performing community. And a little background on this community is, LA Times, I think, just recently had an article out that said it's one of the highest per capita rates of violence in California. In our county, there's many statistics that show the challenges that the community is facing. And this community has come together to commit to become a high-performing community. And it has made all of the difference in how we can come together to support these youth in partnerships. And so, but I'd like to, Vernon, if you wouldn't mind just taking a minute or two, because I realize we're getting a little short on time and we want to save some time for Q&A, to talk a little bit about what this building community capacity commitment has looked like.
Sure. Well, as Kristen stated, here in Antioch, in our work, the approach that we've taken has been very innovative, and I'm more than honored to be a part of this high-performing community collaborative. The collaborative is built around a community commitment, and that is to actively engage with youth ages 10 to 18 specifically through one of the collaboratives that we're speaking of called the Youth Intervention Network, who are likely to become victims or perpetrators of violent crime. Now that's based upon indicators: truancy, disciplinary referrals, suspension records, and attendance. By monitoring those 4 indicators and using the data that we extract from those 4 indicators, it's possible to identify what young people can either become victims or perpetrators of violent crimes. The criminal justice system and the education system are connected to one another. It's like this pipeline that connects the both. And so building a high-performing community collaborative around that commitment, bringing the stakeholders together, juvenile probation, the deputy chief probation officer, local law enforcement, county law enforcement, the health industry, economic development, the healthcare industry, economic development, community-based organizations, and faith-based organizations uniting around this common commitment. Now, we know that funding is always a huge question mark in our work. The beauty of this collaborative is that I've been volunteering for this collaborative, doing the work since 2007. We have actually been able to manifest the shared vision, to acquire skills, speaking a common language, but with very little funding. We have a volunteer base of 236 volunteers who are trained in a globally applied conflict mediation methodology, who Kristen had stated earlier, a group of 24 youth through Chopping It Up in our leadership continuum were the first group of youth certified in this conflict resolution methodology in the world. And to date, we've got about 892 globally accredited conflict mediators in this methodology. So the skill building, to speak that common language, intervening with families in the home around conflict resolution, building their self-esteem, connecting them to resources once we complete an individual service strategy or an assessment, binding them to the resources at no cost to the student or the family for a 12-month process has reaped sustainable results with very minimal dollar. For example, one outcome, statistical outcome, is that the families and youth that have participated in the Youth Intervention Network's process, we saw a 2-point increase in their grade point average. That means they went from a 1.3 to a 3.3 in the school year. We've seen a drastic reduction in truancy and a 92% reduction in police for service calls from those families and those households. Just to give add some substance to the value of this high-performing community collaborative. That's what our communities can look like when we engage from that deeper level. These are the results, true sustainable community development results, leadership development results, which result in increased public safety for our communities. These are the results of commitment through this high-performing community collaborative. Wow. I get excited when every time I talk about it. But Kristen, that's just a little insight on the power of a community collaborative and what it entails, and just some of the reflections on some of the work that we're doing here in Antioch. So can I pass it over to you?
Yeah, thanks so much, Vernon. I really appreciate that. I love to hear that story as well. It's very powerful. And I wanted to actually, next slide, Leah, have Jordan speak a little bit to the stories of striking moments, the moments that we are moved and we're changed and we see things anew. And for a couple of minutes, and then I'll wrap up with some invitations.
So real quick, stories of striking moments. I'm going to read this story right here real quick. This is Javier, one of my peers. He's going through chopping it up. He's been through the dialogue for peaceful change, conflict methodology, and this is his story. So he says, I am fed up with the media affecting me on a daily basis. I wear a black hoodie and people see me as a hoodlum, a troublemaker. I enter the store and all eyes are on me. But I bet those people don't know that I average a 3.86 GPA in high school. And I also bet that people don't know that my intentions aren't to destroy the community, but to restore it. My intentions aren't to destroy the community, but to restore it. That statement is so powerful. And what he said, and because of the way he looks, the interpretations that he gets from people, and the labels that he receives, him being a thug, a hoodlum, a troublemaker. And that's all because, like Vernon said, when we connect with one another on a deeper level of purpose, these interpretations, these labels, they go away because we're not engaging on a social profile. So hearing his story and then, learning this methodology and the model that we use, the framework that we use to engage with people and to connect with them, it's in action. And when you're in action and you're using it, you see results, you get results. A lot of the peers that have gone through this, the dialogue for peaceful change, the chopping it up, I mean, there are people that I never probably would have talked to, if I didn't engage with them on that deeper level, because it allows you to see who they truly are and the power that they have. So with that being said, I just want to share one last thing. Some of my peers and myself and Vernon and Kristen, we all went out to Sacramento, the state capital, for the Legislators' Advocacy Day. And the Advocacy Day was around teen dating violence. They had little workshops regarding teen dating violence prevention and awareness. And while we were out there, we got to talk to some of the senators and some of their staff regarding teen dating violence. And to speak from that deeper level and connect with people from that deeper level, and to see my peers in action, it was one of those striking moments. Like, wow, back then when I first met them, I didn't know this power was in them, but to see it in action, it's not only empowering for themselves and the person they're speaking to, but it was empowering for me too, and it encourages me to engage with all people from that deeper level. So go ahead, Kristen. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. I was trying to find my unmute. So thank you, Jordan. And one of the your story when he says, you know, that his intentions aren't to destroy the community but to restore it. That was such a striking moment and a shift for me that really built bridges for social action. It was just, if we can be aware of those moments when we see things anew, that are additional, open our eyes, we see things clear, it really takes our work to a different level and really builds bridges to social action. And if anyone's interested in some of the more I would say academic research piece around this, you're always welcome to email this. The data analysis from dialogues that the youth held was all around striking moments, the moments of things that they said that struck us when we saw things anew. And I tell you, when I work with this group of youth, they are constantly teaching me, and I constantly see things from a different perspective. And when we just get out of their way as adults and we learn to listen, it has changed my perspective completely on how we would work as a system to address things like teen dating violence or other issues in our community. And so I just really appreciate you going through this, Jordan, in the striking moments. And with that, the last slide, Leah, I know we're getting to Q&A. This is the moment to expand, you know, the voices that are involved in this discussion. One of the things that we really look for is how do we continue to expand the voices. There's a little piece missing on here that says expanding voices and then gives you an arrow to intergenerational social action. The youth, through a grant with Generations United, is doing work with older adults. The older adults have said that they like being called elders, so the elders in their community, to address some social issues together, to come together to share stories, life stories of the historical stories of Antioch. And this is a great picture that shows how we're continuing to expand the voices involved in dialogue within Antioch. So we'd like to just invite you as well to come and to bring your voice. We are beginning to upload all of the videos that the youth have created. You can go to the next slide, Leah, and put it on one of our websites. Again, this is a partnership, so there's multiple websites. The one website where we'll have the videos is choppingitup.org, and where you can go and actually do what might be called a definitional ceremony to reflect back to youth the moments, the striking moments that you see in their videos, that you see in their lives, that you see in their action together. So we invite you to go to view the youth videos, and by the end of the weekend we'll have all of the youth videos posted there. We'll also post resources, and my apologies for not having this up there. We've got lots of things on our plates, but we also invite you to participate in discussion, and you can reach us there, or you can reach us at our emails I've left on the slide here. And with that, I would like to open up for any questions that anyone has, or comments, or topics that they'd like to talk about more.
And I would just like to say, as everybody is writing in your questions now, there is a question function in the webinar bar on your screen. I'd like to say thank you so much to Kristen, Vernon, and Jordan for sharing your expertise and experiences, as well as your personal stories with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
I just received one comment. It's not a question, but it does say that I have found this session most affirming and useful. So thank you for that comment. We also did receive a comment from someone that said that she calls what you were discussing wordology, the pictures you paint with the words you speak, and she has developed a workshop that bring up different images for different generations. So that's just to keep in mind.
Nice.
We
yes,
did
please
just get
email
a
any of
question.
those to us.
When you had an increase in 2 points to students' GPA, what programs did you do to give youth their voice?
What programs did we use to give them their voice?
Yes.
A part of that collaborative, if there are multiple functions to the collaborative, so that youth first was referred by a school administrator at their high school. It's a referral-based process, and then the family, it's a holistic response. So the families have to agree to going through this 6-stage mediative process, which normally takes about 3 to 6 months. And then once they're complete with that mediation process, they're then handed over to a family advocate who identifies the needs of the family and connects them to the resources utilizing our collaborative partners. And once they're through that in the family advocacy phase, they're simultaneously connected to an educational advocate, which provides tutoring, after-school services. So we identify what the need is of the family and the young person, and through our collaborative, we connect them to those resources of service providers who are a part of the youth intervention network at no cost to the family or the student. So it's a collective, collaborative approach, depending on if they're truancy, if they need mental health, if the transportation, youth development, youth leadership, whatever we identify as their needs, we connect them to that resource within the collaborative. So it's a holistic response.
I would just add on to that too, Vernon, that the youth voice is held central. This is not, a group of people deciding what the youth needs in this. The voice of youth is privileged and held central as part of that family mediation, right?
Absolutely.
And then the piece where you said of increasing, how was youth voice heard. So one is in that process, but then in the ongoing youth leadership development and empowerment processes, that's central of how to develop and support youth voice and how to make sure that it's a critical voice that's heard within the community through support of the police department, through support of the superintendent and the school district, all coming together to support hearing that youth voice and privileging that. So I would say those two, yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah. We have a couple questions about resources. One of the questions is, do you have recommendations for resources to use to find activities to do with youth groups? And a second question is, do your resources include curriculum such as conflict methodologies?
So, Vernon, you may be able to speak to this too, but we are putting together resources and tools that we will have on Chopping It Up. And that we can also, if anyone emails us, we can send you some tools. The methodology of the Dialogue for Peaceful Change is available for communities if they're interested in receiving that training. It's a extensive, supported training. And so, yes, from anywhere to there are, resources and guides that we could make available for sure, and then there's also additional support and training that Vernon's group or the Youth Intervention Network or Dialogue for Peaceful Change as part of the partnership can bring to communities as well. But please feel free to email us and we can share with you what we have that we can share in terms of resources and ideas.
Good. Another question for you. How do you engage adults in your efforts to flip the script? And that's outside of intergenerational workshops?
That's a very good question. Kristen, you want to answer it first, or I have some feedback on that?
I was curious, too, what Jordan may have seen in his experience about the different adults that maybe have been involved with the activities. And then I'd be happy to, but if you want to go ahead, Vernon or Jordan.
Well, I'll say this briefly, and then I'll turn over the remaining couple of minutes to Jordan. We're advocating for youth voice, so let me say less and give him more of the floor. But parental involvement is mandatory for the youth that we work with. It's crippling to empower the young person to discover who they are and speaking a language that the parents have no idea or understanding of what that language is or what the heck they mean when they say that they are empowerment. And so parental involvement is mandatory for any young person to work within the Youth Intervention Network, and we also implement the same expectation when we're working within the school systems. For example, teaching leadership through transformational of the frameworks. We require that the teachers go through professional development training that's tailored for the faculty. The parents go through the same type of training. And the idea behind that is to get everyone to speaking a common language, moving from the same place. That's how we're seeing the sustainable transformation. You have to include the parent. You have to include the faculty. You've got to include all the collaborative partners to ensure that we're speaking a common language. So parental support is a mandatory component that must be inclusive if we're going to experience true transformation. Jay, you have some insight or feedback on that?
Yes. So like Vernon said, it's crucial, it's vital that the parents be involved as well, because if they're not, it makes it harder for, the youth to, manifest that powerful leadership when they have their parents, on a different level, not understanding them. So one of the ways you can engage, an adult is to connect with them on that deep level. When you practice that more, you'll get to a point where you don't even have to say anything, but you just connect from them. You connect to them on that deeper level of purpose. And from your lens, when you look at them, you realize that they have potential, that there's something in there that needs to be manifested. When you look at them from that lens and you connect with them from that space, in the space of who you are, it creates a transformational space for them, to discover and find out, okay, who am I? What am I here for? And if they inquire on how to engage from that level, you can ask them, what do they care deeply about? And most people, you don't hear that too often. That question, it's very personal. It is, it can be uncomfortable asking somebody that question. And just when you ask them that question, it opens up their mind, and it allows them to be vulnerable and connect on that deeper level. So ask the person, what do you care deeply about? When you're just having a general conversation, just let them know if you want, share with them what you care deeply about, and then ask them what they care deeply about. That's one way that I found to connect with an adult. Kristen, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, thanks, Jordan and Vernon. So two things that came to mind, just really concrete things. When we were engaging in dialogues around social action, one of those striking moments when things shift, when I usually think intergenerational, I'm usually thinking youth and older adults. And the youth brought to our thinking that they really thought it was critical that they engage with the middle school students. And so they have been doing, you asked with outside of workshops, but they have been doing workshops for middle schoolers around what healthy relationships look like and developing training around that for middle schoolers. And we're looking at what that bringing people together of different ages looks like in an organic way outside of workshops. One of the ways that we do that is actually engaging in social action together. So Vernon and Jordan both talked about that, that we have bridges to social action, and when we connect in purpose, there's social action. But we also have to create those opportunities for social action. So we are looking at adult-youth partnerships, engaging together in social action. And that's where, we've talked about things in livable communities and design, that we want to create those opportunities through how we design spaces, how we design opportunities for all ages to come together around what they really care about. And that's when those opportunities for transformation really happen. So I hope we answered that question, because that question could be a whole webinar in itself, right? So any other questions before we close?
We actually have a few more questions, but as we're getting close to 2 o'clock, we wanted to do a little bit of conclusion.
Sure.
And Kristen, Jordan, and Vernon, if any of you have a few moments after 2, we might be able to get folks to stay on and ask you those questions.
Absolutely. Be happy to.
Sure.
So we just want to do a little bit of conclusion and then let the folks that have questions stay on the phone.
Great.
So we just have a couple save the dates from Generations United. And as we hope that many of you had heard, the MetLife Foundation and Generations United are launching inaugural Best Intergenerational Communities Awards. We will be having an event on March 28th from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. on Capitol Hill. And the 5 communities we are recognizing are the County of San Diego, Georgetown, Texas, Lamoni, Iowa, Oberlin, Ohio, and Virginia Planning District 10. April 19th from 1 to 2 o'clock p.m. is our next Learning Network webinar, and the topic will be Grand Families. We will have more information up on our website this afternoon regarding that. And then we'd love for you to keep the dates of our next conference, which is in the summer of 2013. And please feel free to go on the Generations United website for more information about this webinar. We'll be posting everything up next week and also other intergenerational topics. Additionally, you can sign up to get our Generations This Week weekly e-newsletter. We do have a Facebook page, a Twitter account, and a YouTube channel. On the last slide, which we will keep up during our next portion where we can ask some more questions of our presenters, you'll find Sherry's email address as well as mine. And feel free to email Sherry or I if you have any questions about this webinar or any additional work at Generations United. So once again, thank you to Vernon, Jordan, and Kristen. And thanks to all of you who are joining us today. At this point, if you have questions, please feel free to stay on the line, and our presenters have some time to take a few more of those questions. And I will start asking some more questions.
Great, thanks, Leah.
I'm sorry, the question panel just moved on me, so let me pull that up again. Someone wrote in, interested in learning more about the conflict resolution training that was mentioned earlier.
Great. I would suggest, and can we type in, I'm trying to think, or go back to that slide really briefly for Jordan's or Vernon's email, because Vernon would be the best person to connect with about the Dialogue for Peaceful Change mediation, dialogue and mediation training. And Vernon, would you have anything to add about that?
No, absolutely. If you could send me an email with your contact information. I am a domestically certified trainer in this methodology. I'll be headed over to the UK in about 4 weeks to get my global accreditation. So I'll be working with Colin Craig, who's the founder and the guru behind this framework. So if you are interested in having a 5-day, 40-hour intensive DPC training with either your stakeholders within the community or young people, which gives them a tangible conflict resolution skill that is extremely effective, shoot me an email. I'll touch base with you. I'll be working with Colin very closely. We would love to connect with you. Open discussions on how we could actually bring that training opportunity to you, your organization, your school district. An email will start that discussion.
And I will tell you, I will just tell you, as a person who was invited to go through the training as a stakeholder in the community and for my county position, I went through the training with Vernon, with the chief of police, with the superintendent of the schools, with volunteers, with someone from city council. There is nothing more powerful than having that shared commitment and language and that ability to share that training together. I found it extremely powerful. I'll just share that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen.
Next question is, how do you involve media and journalists?
Oh, that's such a good question. So we have been really working on trying to get more of the positive stories in the media. And so we have been inviting them to different events that the kids are doing, sending press releases, and we have gotten you know, some response. And still, it's interesting because it is a huge shift to a strengths-based, positive way of seeing youth. Some of the media stories still, the headline was, you know, troubled youth in Antioch. And so it's a long journey we have together. But I think that it's a very strategic opportunity. And if anyone's done anything really innovative with that, we'd love to hear it, to really see about how to shift. A really great resource is, oh, it's blanking on me. I will come back to Vernon and Jordan if you have anything to add. I'll get the resource of the media outlet that's doing amazing work around the globe. And they're doing specific work right now in Cleveland, Ohio, around initiatives that are looking at positive social change. And they have focused really on communicating in a strengths-based way, communicating images that inspire, that drive positive social action, that bring us closer together. And I'll look it up really quick, and I will text it to you, Leah, if you can put it out to folks. Vernon, Jordan, do you have anything to add?
No. Very good answer, Kristen. Can't follow that up.
Okay, our next question is, are youth referred to you, and how do you get connected?
Yes, youth are referred to us. We get connected multiple ways, through referrals, through our partnership with the school districts. School administrators can refer their youth to us. Some of our leadership academies are implemented within the school systems, the specific sites. So it's a referral basis mechanism, an outreach and recruitment mechanism. Our partnership with the probation department allows us to go into the facilities, specifically the juvenile halls, engage with these young people, create a continuum of transition, almost like a case management structure, to begin to provide resources to them while they're incarcerated. Then we hand them off to a caseworker or intervention specialist for their transition back into the community, and continue our empowerment work with them. Youth conferences, juvenile justice conferences. Again, our purpose is to directly influence 10 million youth in 20 years. It's extremely specific. So engaging with a young person can be in a store. It can be through a referral mechanism. There is no specific way to get connected. Youth summits, working with the county supervisors and state senators and so forth, are just the various ways to get connected. So there is a referral process, but also just divine engagement or connection. I can't discredit that approach either. Or hitting the website is another way to get connected.
Thank you. We have one more question, and then I'm going to read two comments from one individual. The last question is, it's so great to hear these success stories, but I imagine there were some challenges along the way. What were or are some of the issues you faced in getting the programs off the ground?
Do you want me to start, Vernon?
Sure. we can go on with that all day.
Yeah, sure. There's been lots of challenges. And, you know, I'll tell you that it's the power of that partnership that really pulls us through. But, like, for an example, you know, last week when we went to Sacramento, we had an overnight trip. And even though we're in very good communication with the school district, we had some challenges in making sure that we had the right approvals according to board policies for the kids to stay overnight. And, you know, what helps us through those challenges are the partnerships and the level of communication and trust that we have built, that everyone came to the table to try to figure out the best, you know, possible solutions. But, you know, in reality, there's policies, there's systems in place that we have to deal with. And so we you know, face those on a daily basis. We have challenges with youth staying engaged. It's something that you know, Jordan and Vernon and I talk about all the time, you know, what's going on with this person? Have you talked to this person? What's going on in their life? Let's reach out. And so it's you know, I write about this often where, you know, when we talk about this, it seems a very linear progress of achievement and learning, but it's complex and it's chaotic and, you know, it's messy. And, you know, the best thing that we could do is just really stay true to our partnerships and our shared language and our commitments and make it through. Would you add anything, Vernon?
Well, absolutely. Well, let's be frank. When you're leading transformation, you have to expect opposition. We are opposed or challenging status quo. We are challenging the negative messaging. So we know that negativity sells in the media. Well, we're challenging that because it's not the image or the messaging. That message may not be true about the young people that we engage. So we're challenged in media. We're challenged in status quo. Let's be frank, the criminal justice system in the state of California is dependent upon those young people who are dropping out of school to make up the number of inmates that they're building or projecting to build prisons for in the future. Let's just be frank. There are several thousands of jobs that are dependent upon our youth failing school and becoming involved in the criminal justice system. That's the truth. So we're status quo in opposition. Our ultimate job, if we're doing our work properly, is to put ourselves out of a job. That's our goal. And so status quo is a huge opposition. Just have to call a spade a spade.
Thank you, Vernon. I have two last comments, and these are both from our same attendee. I also believe it is vital to include the administrators in the training at school. Too often administrators believe it is sufficient for their teachers to be involved. Without a strong understanding of what their teachers are engaged in, it is hard for an administrator to provide the kind of support that is necessary to advocate for this kind of work and to facilitate the kind of support and culture that is necessary.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And he also says, my strongest sense is that our youth will give us and live up to what we expect of them. If we think highly of their capacity and support them in building capacity, then they go there with an awesome force.
Great. Love it.
Absolutely.
Anyway, can I just say, Leah, that these questions have just been so great, and I really hope that everyone comes to the Next Generations United Conference so that we can have these conversations, because these are just fabulous.
Well, thank you again, Vernon, Jordan, and Kristen. We are so appreciative of you sharing your expertise with us today. And with this, we're going to end the webinar, and we will post it up with the PowerPoint slides as well as the recording next week. And please, all attendees, feel free to contact Kristen, Jordan directly, or free to contact through Sherry or myself. Thank you.
Thank you all for your commitment to the work. It was a pleasure engaging with all of you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.